Welcome to Liberal Banter with Liz and Olu, where we're going to dissect what has been a truly insane week of news. This week, Diddy was indicted on horrific charges, Eric Adams was indicted on hysterical charges, and Mark Robinson's September surprise is one for the ages. We'll also talk about celebrities like Chappel Roan and Janet Jackson, who had very bad PR moments this week. And finally, we have some unsolicited advice for the DNC and their damn emails. Let's get into it. So first, we're going to talk about the Diddy charges that were unveiled this week. And it was pretty horrifying to hear and read about.
Yeah, I mean, we all saw the horrific Cassie video, and it somehow didn't seem like things could get worse, but apparently can. Some truly horrific allegations of women and also men being plied with drugs and alcohol and then being coerced into sexual acts that they couldn't consent to. The prosecutors actually alleged that sometimes just straight up violence was used to get them to comply. It's insane to me that someone would do this and then also record videos, which is another allegation, that Diddy would record these sexual assaults on drugged up people and, drunk people and kept them for some fucked up reason. Mm-hmm. Sociopathic, psychopathic level stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the dominoes really started to fall last year with Cassie's lawsuit. So, it was very brave of her to come forward. And I think that led to a lot of people realizing that this didn't need to just remain status quo. Something could be done, and obviously got the attention of the feds. Once again, shout out to the Southern District of New York. They stay working.
Yeah.
But they really, seems like it was Cassie that sort of kicked all of this off, and I'm really just in awe of her for coming forward after suffering years of abuse at the hands of this man who so many people covered up for. Let's say, I'm not a celebrity, I don't know who was hanging out where, but this is something that happened for years and years to multiple people. There's no way it doesn't stay undercover without help, without people who are in the industry covering for him, making excuses for him, I don't know, giving him the key to the city, Mayor Eric Adams. But it just seems like there's got to be some group of people out there who knew about this and did nothing and helped nobody. It didn't help any of the victims. And I can't believe it went on for so long while everyone just it was sort of an open secret in Hollywood, it sounds like.
So, this is always complicated, right? Diddy is a famous, like uber famous billionaire rapper, collaborates with everyone, right? So, I've seen pictures going around of, pictures of him with one other celebrity or the other and like, what did they know? But to be fair, like, he was that famous. His parties were the place to be if you wanted to make any connections in the industry. So I don't necessarily think guilt by association is the way to go here. The prosecutors did say that he had accomplices, I guess, is what you would call them, and that he had people on his staff who were helping him cover this up and carry this out, and that there are videos of, other people being involved. So I think we will learn who exactly was directly involved. But, I agree with you. The rap industry and the hip hop industry would have had a level of see no evil, hear no evil kind of thing, or maybe even see no evil but speak no evil, and just kind of,
Yeah, I want to, I'm not saying it's sort of guilt by association. I just think going to his parties in and of itself is not the crime or the issue. It's more my sense from reading the coverage and hearing people talk about it is that there were major celebrities who knew things weren't right, who would say things, like, don't stay for the after party at a Diddy party or something like that, and sort of warn people close to them, but never felt the need to expose him fully. That is, I'm not saying these people were engaged in any of these sort of deviant activity or criminal activity. They weren't drugging people and threatening their careers or whatever, but people knew things happened and nobody said anything for years. It's a horrible story all around, with some interesting angles, let's say, from the indictment that was unsealed. There's been a lot of talk about having 1,000 bottles of baby oil, for example, which is just a concerning amount of baby oil for any person to have in their house. And then trying to rope in Costco, and then Costco having to say that they did not sell him that baby oil. It's just a weird case. And I'm interested to see how it plays out in the courts, because obviously it sounds like we're going to have a trial. He's not going to just concede guilt. He seems like he's going to try and fight it for some reason, even though he basically snitched on himself with his tapes. So we'll see.
I mean, Costco obviously wants to distance themselves from this as much as possible, and you can see why. Like, please do not rope us into your mess. But honestly, to me, like, this is part of the problem with how we consume this kind of news. Like, okay, who the hell cares what brand of, like, lubricant or whatever he was using? Like, the details are horrifying enough, and we don't, like, I've seen a lot of jokes about the baby oil thing, for example, and it's like, think about the victims and the people who are allergic all of these things. Like, they're reading your messages and your memes and your jokes. Like, of all of the details here, I just don't think the baby oil thing is the one that should be going viral.
Well, it is going viral. I've seen a lot of memes and jokes, and that just seems to be how we deal with news now. So, there's still more to come. I know another woman filed a lawsuit against him this week, the one who has Gloria Allred as her lawyer. So there's definitely more information.
He's so screwed. He is so screwed. You're right. Actually, I thought he fled to the Caribbean when he did that, like, apology video after the Cassie thing, but apparently he didn't. Right.
I think he thought when the Cassie thing happened that that would be the end of it. And then when the feds raided his home, it sounds like he was trying to cooperate with them, but then they decided, we're just going to arrest this dude. We don't need any more cooperation. So that's probably why he was still around to be arrested. And
but this is the
hubris.
This is the hubris that allows you to even do this kind of stuff anyways, where you feel comfortable enough to do this on video with your full face on camera and storing them even after you knew that you were being investigated. This is the kind of hubris it takes, right? This sort of entitlement and sense of being untouchable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone will say Diddy didn't have a huge ego. I think that goes without saying. He has been successful, let's be fair, but he has also stepped on a lot of people to get to where he is, and made a lot of enemies, actually, because of how he has operated. So it's not surprising to think that his ego played a role in all of this. And finally, it seems someone is making the effort to put him in his place. And so once again, shout out to the Southern District of New York, because they are also involved in the next story, which is Eric Adams. Where to start on this? Because people who are listening may not know this, but both Olu and I are ex-New Yorkers. We both lived in the city and spent a lot of time there. I lived downtown, Olu lived uptown, and we would often hang out in each other's neighborhoods. We love New York, both of us. I don't want to speak for you, Olu, but I do have a special place in my heart for New York City specifically. And when Eric Adams was named mayor a couple of years ago, I remember thinking to myself, that's weird. I wouldn't have thought an ex-cop would ever be, at least in today's New York, would be mayor of New York. Are we sure these people know what they're doing? And it turns out maybe New York residents did not, because this week, the Southern District of New York filed charges against Eric Adams for bribery and fraud, alleging all sorts of things, including accepting business class travel in payment for helping the Turkish embassy clear its final permits to open a building in New York City. I think people were surprised by it, but also not surprised because a few people around Eric Adams had been investigated already, so it seemed like only a matter of time. But it was still surprising to hear the charges and what the feds are accusing him of doing.
Yeah, it was swinging from the horrific to the deeply stupid, right? This case just encapsulates all of the reasons why New York should not have voted for this guy. I agree with you. We love New York. We spent probably 10 plus years in New York, or even more in your case, Liz. And it just seemed like when he was running, there was so much other talent that could have been a better choice than him. He was just about vibes and swagger. It was always clear that there was no substance there. There was no there. You had more substantial people like Maya Wiley and, Andrew Yang running. And then for some reason, I guess the New York political establishment decided that this was their guy. And then we ended up with this guy whose biggest policy is an anti-rat campaign.
Well, don't forget he also introduced New York City to trash cans because nobody had ever heard of those before. What has always fascinated me about Eric Adams is just that he just seems to not be a fan of the people he's supposed to be serving. I don't know. There's this vibe I get that he approaches problems in New York as if it's the citizens of New York that are the problem. It's the vibe I get from him. For example, when the college protests were happening at Columbia, and he accused students of bringing chains on campus to attack the police, I guess. But it turns out those were bike chains, which if you've ever been to New York City, bicycles are a big mode of transportation, and you put your bike outside wherever you go and you lock it up with a chain. Those were bike chains that he accused these students of bringing on campus as weapons. And then a couple of weeks ago, there was a shooting on the New York City subway where the cops shot someone over a $2.90 fare evasion on the subway. And so the whole incident was just that two cops shot each other on the subway while trying to hit a suspect. The suspect did not have a gun. But the way Eric Adams announced the news was to say that a New York City officer was shot and, thoughts and prayers as he bravely put his life on the line for the city. But then it turns out he wasn't shot by someone. It was another cop shooting recklessly that hit this guy. It was just such a ridiculous
cop violence.
It was cop on cop violence. But Eric Adams phrased it when he first sort of announced it as a, kind of like insinuating a city person had done it and shot the cop. I don't know. He just seemed like such a weirdly authoritarian mayor that he seemed to think that all he needed to do was just whip New York into shape by just scolding them. And I don't think that's a way to run one of America's biggest and greatest cities. So I never liked the dude. So to find this out about him, it just kind of validated all the sketchy feelings I got from him when he was running. And I feel so validated in that perspective. And I really want to ask New Yorkers what they were thinking, but, we shouldn't judge them while they're down.
This is part of the problem that a lot of people have identified, right? The way encounters with cops are always framed. The cops can never do anything wrong. The cops are always victims, right? I mean, that statement reads exactly like what the police union would release about another deadly police and person encounter where the person ends up dead and they just say, person shot dead. By whom? What bullet? Who did it? Right? You never hear that. And that is one of the reasons why he became a mayor, right? Because he ran after Black Lives Matter. He ran based on law and order. He ran saying that he was going to be pro-police. He's increased the police budget while cutting budgets to libraries. So you can clearly tell where his priorities are. He rolled out robot cops that everybody hates and that are completely ineffective. But this is the thing, right? He represented a hard swing from a more progressive mayor in de Blasio to this sort of authoritarian thing that for some reason people like Brett Stevens of the New York Times thought that New York needed.
Yeah, I definitely remember that was part of it, right? That he was promising to bring just a firm hand to New York City. And I guess people have experienced that and they're like, I think we're good. I kind of joke that the feds were probably contacted by residents of the city. They probably were like, we can't get rid of this guy. Please help. But I don't want to take anything away from Eric Adams himself and the things he's accused of doing. So jokes aside, there is a lengthy timeline that has been published by multiple publications like CNN or the New York Times about all the times.
2016.
Yeah, all the times he accepted gifts or upgrades on flights, for example. And just I want to read some of it because I think it's interesting, especially the business class upgrades. I'm fascinated by those because I personally really, really enjoy Turkish Airlines business class. I just want to put it out there. If they want to sponsor my upgrades, I would love that. I just want to say that it's really comfortable.
It depends on if you can get them a building.
Unfortunately, I have nothing to offer. I'm just putting it out there that I'm a fan. But let me read some of what Eric Adams is accused of doing. In October 2016, he accepted a free business class upgrade for himself, his partner, that raised their ticket values to around $15,000 2 days before he was traveling to India on a Turkish airline. The tickets were initially bought for around $2,300 and then upgraded to business class, which would have cost $15,000. With no explanation, I guess, because obviously airlines love to give away free stuff. Then months later, he accepted another business class upgrade, this time worth $35,000 for himself and a relative and a staff member to travel to France, Turkey, and China. He accepted a heavily discounted stay at the St. Regis Hotel in Istanbul, which is owned by a wealthy Turkish businessman. That hotel stay cost him around $600 instead of $7,000, which is how much the hotels usually cost.
Wow.
He also accepted another set of free business class tickets, this time worth $16,000 for himself, where he was going to Beijing through Istanbul. And then another trip where he accepted these time business class tickets for worth $14,000. All of these were sort of disguised as upgrades, so he would buy the tickets for an economy and miraculously get upgraded to business class basically every time, as one does. Now, I don't know about you, but that has never happened to me, and I've flown a lot. I
mean, a lot of these are just ridiculous and completely unnecessary. There is another instance where he was going to fly to France, but he accepted a transfer through Istanbul just so he can get a business class upgrade. I'm sorry, like New York to France is just 6 to 7 hours. There is no business class flight that is business class upgrade that is worth me spending another 3 to 4 hours in an airport just because I want to be in business class.
And can I say, as someone who has gone through Istanbul, that is not an airport to fuck around with for transfers. I want to paint a picture for y'all because I feel very strongly about this because twice I have nearly missed a connecting flight out of Istanbul because I thought the layover of 4 hours was enough, and it was not enough. It's like, that is one of the world's largest airports, okay?
It's a massive hub, yeah.
It is not a place that you should try to fly through if there's a direct flight. I can't stress it. Both of us have experienced European airports, right? These are not layover friendly airports. If you don't have your shit together, you may be spending the night in whatever city you're in. So to inconvenience yourself to fly from New York to Paris through Istanbul when there are so many direct flights out of JFK and LaGuardia, I don't understand. I'm sorry, I forgot the other airports that New Yorkers have. Newark. There are 3 massive airports out of New York.
Everybody always forgets Newark.
Everybody forgets Newark. Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia. All of them have flights to France that don't require you to go through one of the largest airports in the world and potentially miss your flight. But this man insisted on always going through Istanbul. Apparently, at one point, he was planning a trip to the Caribbean and wanted to know if Turkish Airlines flew there, even if he would have to go through Istanbul.
I mean, what is a complete lack of knowledge of geography and...
Oh my God. The Caribbean is 5 hours away from New York. Why would you go all the way into Europe?
The way north.
That's insane. It's just, and he says he wasn't doing anything wrong. So, I guess who believes that?
This is how you know he knows he was doing something wrong, because he went out of his way to always make sure that he was flying Turkish Airlines, even at great inconvenience to himself, right?
Yeah.
And that's because he knew he was going to get some kind of quid pro quo as part of his flight. And that's the only reason why somebody would be willing to fly to Turkey just to get to like Puerto Rico or something.
Why would you do that? You go 8 hours out of your way to go to Puerto Rico. And you may be asking, like, what was the point of this? Why did he do this? Well, other things that happened. The Turkish businessman contributed $50,000 to his mayoral campaign. He got straw donations from a businessman who ran a construction company in New York.
I just want to add one thing. The one who contributed $50,000 to his 2021 campaign did it because he believed Adams might one day be the president of the United States.
Listen, I gotta say, that's how business works, right? You gotta bet on many horses, okay? Who knows which one will win? You don't know.
Honestly,
you don't know.
I feel like that guy does deserve to be defrauded of $50,000. If you believe Eric Adams could be POTUS,
I mean, all you got to do is hear one of his speeches to know that this man was never going to be president. I think in the group chat this week, I learned that Eric Adams has one of his favorite sayings, which we all had a big, huge chuckle over, was, what is it? It's like, all my haters become my waiters.
At the table of success. Yeah. All my haters become my waiters at the table of success.
Right. All my haters become my waiters when I dine at the table of success. And I just thought to myself, when I heard this the first time, I thought it was a joke. I was like, no, he never said that. But then there was video of him saying it multiple times. And I just thought to myself, anyone who comes up with these kinds of phrases and is that full of himself, that is not a good candidate. I don't know who saw this man, who met this man and was like, this is someone I need to invest in. Although, to be fair, the Turkish embassy was completed earlier, so maybe it wasn't all a waste.
Okay, but that's the other thing that is pissing me off about this, because it's such petty bribery for something like massive. This building is in Midtown New York. Must be worth what, a couple of $100 million and all you got from it was a business class upgrade. Like, believe in yourself, Eric Adams.
Oh, okay. So you're mad now. The issue is that the grift wasn't grifting enough. Okay. That's okay.
Have some more faith in
Listen,
yourself.
you know what? I get what you're saying. You're like, think big, think bigger. Why stop at business class upgrades on Turkish? As great as the airline is, why stop there? It's a good point. Maybe if we had given him more time, he might have done more. We may never know, because the discussion now is whether he should resign, and or if people should try and push him out, like the governor. I heard she's weighing some of her options there. What do you think? Do you think he should resign? I think he should.
Of course he should resign. He's clearly corrupt. The other thing is, I guess I just said he didn't take that much money, but he got donations from Turkish foreign contributors, and then he would put that through straw American donors to make it seem like American donors were giving him this campaign funds, but it was actually coming from Turkey. But then the problem is that New York City matches campaign donations by a huge ratio. I don't want to misquote, but I would say something like 8-1. So in essence, he ended up getting up to $10 million from New York City in addition to the foreign contributions that he got. So
wow.
He defrauded New York City. He's selling influence. Everyone around him has been arrested. He changed the police commissioner within 24 hours. That guy's house was raided. He's clearly just running a corrupt organization. At some point, the text messages sounded, mob level. Make sure you always delete these messages. It's clearly a corrupt enterprise. He needs to go.
Yeah, can I say, though, this may not be very nice of me, but I remember when I would see Eric Adams' press conferences. It's going to sound really stupid, but I would watch these videos, and the people around him, they would have Chanel necklaces on, and I was just like, are those real? Because I don't know how much they pay New York City workers, but it's not that much, girl. What's happening?
That's true. Public servants should not be serving. They should not be serving looks. They should just be serving the people.
Yeah, it just, I was always like, I don't know how I feel about this. Y'all are in here in the $5,000 Van Cleef necklace. Okay, why am I recognizing the fashion you're wearing? You work for the city. That doesn't make any sense. But, I guess we should always trust our instincts, let's say. Because I remember I used to see their press conferences and be like, my God, everyone is too nicely dressed. I'm not comfortable with this. And turns out there was a reason for that.
Yeah, it seems like all of them were influence peddling in one way or the other. I think about 12 or more of his aides or people associated with him have been investigated or raided or are currently facing, investigations from the prosecutor.
Yeah, and well, again, just like with the Diddy case, we will see what happens. He's pleading not guilty. We will see. Let's move on to the next story, though, which I'm sure you're going to be super excited to talk about. I want to say this is yet another black man on some bullshit.
I was going to say the same thing.
Something is going on with the podcast this week. I don't know. We did not mean to order them in this way to make it look like we're piling on. But another
this is
black
the kind
man.
of week black men we're having. I'm sorry.
It's definitely. It was a week. It was a week. Mark Robinson. Yeah. I'll let you start because I have thoughts, but I'll let you start.
So Mark Robinson is a lieutenant governor from North Carolina who is running for governor again this time. Everyone has always known he was a terrible person. He's the guy who said some people need killing when referring to liberals and Democrats. He was advocating for them to be shot. He's the guy who said that he doesn't want any abortions under any circumstances, no exceptions. This guy has said all sorts of misogynistic stuff about women and their place.
He still became lieutenant governor of North Carolina. This is all before he was elected.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
North Carolinas have known the kind of man this person has been for a long time. He's anti-trans, obviously. I mean, that just goes without saying, right? These people are so horrible. And his whole thing is being, a family man, bringing back family values to America. And we all know where that's going, right? We all know that means that there is a skeleton in their closet, and wow, this one is massive. So this guy sounds like he has a porn addiction. Then he signed up for a porn site called Nude Africa with his own government name because he's a fucking idiot, and his own actual email address where his own name is on it. And then his username was Black Nazi, which is just insane to me. You're on a porn site with black people and you're saying that you're a black Nazi. So these people are so confused.
It's just it's just a lot. It's just a lot.
He was on there praising the Holocaust, saying that, slavery should be brought back. This guy is completely cuckoo.
Yeah, he really strikes me as one of those Gen Xers who, thought the internet anonymity was real. I think millennials and onwards, we kind of know, the internet is forever and you can't really say anything.
Like, you had an AOL account in the early 2000s and you knew to put something
first of all, stop dating me. Okay. I don't know what AOL is. I've never heard of it. I'm a young person. The only internet I know is Instagram. On a serious note, though, I think he's definitely one of those Gen Xers who thought, if I use a weird email address, nobody will track me or whatever, but then put his full government name there. It's like, okay, this isn't really anonymous, bro. And the website he was on was called Nude Africa, which is a strange name. I'm going to be honest. I don't understand the name of the website. It looks like it hasn't been upgraded in decades with their logo. And he was going on there and having political discussions, which just is hilarious because how much time do you have to be spending on a porn website to be having political discussions? I don't want to. I mean, I'm a child of God and I've never been on a porn website. But I thought you go on there, do whatever y'all are doing, y'all perverts are doing, and then you leave. Who stays to leave comments? I don't understand. What is happening? Even 10, 20 years ago, were people spending that much time online on porn websites that they would be having political discussions on there?
That's what Facebook was for at that time. I don't understand why anybody would be in porn comments.
That must have been the only place he went online. That's what I'm thinking. Because if you were someone who I don't know, hung out on Facebook and then I guess went to go watch your porn, you would just come back to Facebook to have those conversations.
Oh, I see what you mean. He's permanently logged into Nude Africa, and that was
so
his social network.
Exactly. That's what I'm gathering. Because I don't know why you were discussing the Holocaust on a porn website. What the fuck? That's just... Ugh, he was on there that much, and he's a married family man who tells other people how they should live. Just stunning.
Also, he said he had a threesome with his sister-in-law. That's the sister of his own wife, because again, family values guy.
And even if that's not true, because it might not be, he might have just said things, right? That's still...
That's
disgusting.
True, because men be lying about these
kind
of
exactly. He may not have done that, but now he has his wife eyeing her sister. It's just It's
Exactly.
just, oh my God. That's the
He was probably
family
just
man.
on there bragging because, he's such a loser.
And then his
But
campaign staff resigned. I guess this was the straw that broke the
which,
camel's back.
okay, seriously, fuck them. I would have had more respect for them if they did not resign. Because this guy, it's been known that he used to visit porn stores so frequently. It's been known all of his comments that he's made about women. It's been known all of the comments he's made about shooting down people. This guy's always been horrible. This is not at all surprising that this would be the kind of activities he would have been getting up to on the internet. So no, you get 0 points. Actually, you get negative points for resigning now.
You lose points. Yeah, that's true. That's true. They joined his campaign for governor knowing who he was. So we have no empathy and no applause for them because what's the difference now, quite honestly? Sure, I guess more people know, but honestly, though, what's new here? This is not new information for you guys. And you still joined his campaign. So
exactly, and I'm sure they've heard worse being around him. I'm sure they've seen worse being around him.
Can you imagine?
Right?
And then they're going to put it in a book or something. Ugh.
It's just been a week, but these are all the stories that we get through, so we can get to the more fun stuff.
More fun stuff. Fun. Are you top fun because it's about celebrities, or?
Well, yeah, and also because these people don't actually matter.
Oh my God, we're gonna have this discussion every time one of these people does something. Okay, let's talk about Chappel Roan first of all, because we also got into it with a few people on Threads because of this. So this week, Chappel Roan did an interview with, I think it was The Guardian, where she was asked about the upcoming presidential election. And if you're not aware, Chappel Roan is a singer-songwriter who is having a huge moment right now. She had one of the songs of the summer. Her aesthetic is very like 80s, early 2000s pop. She's from Missouri. She's been a musician for a while, but only recently started having massive, massive hits. And if you've watched her perform, if you've heard her speak, she is clearly a liberal. I feel like that requires repeating because some people forgot over the last week. But Chappel Roan is LGBTQ pro LGBTQ plus. She was even sort of adopted in quotes by a drag queen. She has been called your drag queen, your favorite drag queen's favorite artist. Like, she is that in the culture and is liberal. So this week, earlier in the week, she did an interview with The Guardian where she was asked about the election. She said that there are issues with both parties and people should vote local. And that triggered a lot of people who said she was both siding the election, both siding the parties. And they were very disappointed because, as I've described, she seemed very liberal to them, and they thought this was a sign that she was maybe not as liberal as they thought.
Okay. So I just learned about this person this week, and I also just realized that I thought they were Sabrina Carpenter, so whatever.
Oh my God. Okay. Not her. Not her.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. She's definitely liberal. And I could see you fighting for your life on Threads about this.
Hold on. Let me just read, because I found the quote. Let me just read what she said that triggered people. This is the quote that she gave. She said, "I have so many issues with our government in every way. There are so many things that I would want to change. So I don't feel pressured to endorse someone. There's problems on both sides. I encourage people to use your critical thinking skills. Use your vote. Vote small. Vote for what's going on in your city." And then she was asked what change she wants to see in the U.S. during the election year, and she instantly said, quote, "Trans rights. They cannot have cis people making decisions for trans people, period." That's what she said that caused all of this to kick off.
Okay. So she clearly said some really, really important things there. We have largely agreed that it's actually very important, if not more important, to vote in your local elections, your school boards, your local judges. Those are the people who are actually directly affecting your zip code. So that's very important. The problem here is she used the trigger word both sides, like, ma'am, please. Let us stop doing that. That's why people are triggered. Because you cannot say that the biggest issue for you is trans rights and then try to equate both sides there. Because there's clearly a party that is better for trans rights. I agree. She doesn't need to endorse anyone. I don't see what the hullabaloo is. She doesn't have to endorse anyone. And I see she came out later and said she was voting for Kamala Harris, which
She
again,
did.
she doesn't really owe anybody who she's voting for. Your ballot is supposed to be between you and your ballot and your God or whatever you believe in, right? So
Yeah.
I actually agree that the outrage has been outsized. And you know what I'm going to say next? This is why celebrity endorsements shouldn't matter. We're going to keep having this kind of nonsensical conversations where we're like, oh, this celebrity is good and this celebrity is bad based on who they vote for or who they endorse. Who cares? What are these people's qualifications? What are their insights to tell you who you should vote for? Why do we keep handing over so much power to these famous people's opinions? Who cares?
I mean, sure. Okay. We won't agree on this, but I do think it matters. And I think it helps people and encourages people to be engaged in their, political process when celebrities speak up about this. And as we pointed out, she did say she was voting for Kamala. I don't think most people would have doubted it if she had never said anything. After all, the Harris Walls campaign has merch that's sort of fashioned after her. The hats, the trucker hats with the camo patterns that the Harris Walls campaigns were selling were modeled after Chappel Roan merch. And when the Harris Walls campaign announced that merch, she kind of tweeted out or threaded out or whatever, is this real? She seemed really excited that they were taking something from her merch and applying it to the campaign. And they've used her music before. I didn't think there was a question as to where she stood. I think it should have been clear. If she had never said anything, I think we would have still continued on assuming, probably correctly, that she was a liberal and she was probably going to vote for Kamala. And she did say she would, which is why I kind of went on Threads and said, let's leave her alone, okay? She strikes me as someone who is naive at worst. She just, she's doing the thing that a lot of young people are doing this election, is that they're letting perfection become the enemy of good. And I think that's the bigger story there behind Chappell Roan. It's not necessarily about celebrity. It's about young people and how they feel about this election. There are quite a few of them, a lot of them, who are defending Chappell Roan online, who feel like she feels. They genuinely think both sides are equally unhelpful, which sounds insane to hear it as, an old person. But it is how a lot of young people feel. And I think that's the real story that people are sort of missing here by focusing on the celebrity angle. She speaks for a lot of young people in the U.S. who feel like the Democrats have not been as progressive as they could be and are a little disappointed. And some of them may really stay home. That's not an exaggeration. That's not a joke. And we can yell at them and say they're vapid or stupid or whatever, which are all words I saw used to describe Chappell Roan. But I think that's the bigger picture, is what are we doing to educate these children? And I feel old saying that, but to educate these kids so they know what is actually at stake and can make the right decision.
Okay. But again, you are highlighting the problem, right? The problem is that people need to learn about the issues from reputable sources. And this is going to keep happening if you let pop stars who are too busy doing tours and, running from one Hollywood studio to the other, if you let them be the ones to educate the young people, then you're going to get this kind of stuff, right? Because all she's doing there is she hasn't bothered to educate herself. She doesn't really know what the issues are. She just knows that there's this vibe that both sides are unhelpful
No.
in
Well,
her
hold on.
generation, and she's repeating it.
Well, that's not true. And I feel like I'm always defending the celebrities here, which I should be an agent, honestly. But the thing that set her off, let's say, was that over the summer, Biden's administration said they were going to be against gender affirming care for trans minors. And they received a lot of backlash about it. The Biden administration received a lot of backlash about it. And so that's sort of where she came from when she said, oh, trans rights is important and both sides and all that. And the Biden campaign did have to clarify their statement, and they went through the Human Rights Council to clarify it and explain that they were not actually against gender affirming care, and they kind of reversed themselves on the issue. So I don't know if she's uninformed. This is something that happened over the summer and that she was reacting to. So
okay, Liz, but this seems like a very, 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 very like relatively minor problem compared to people who are literally trying to ban trans people, trying to convert them, trying to like erase any mention of them in the Department of Education, in the DOJ, like.
I understand.
Like, let's have some fucking perspective, okay? But I agree with you. She actually isn't the worst offender this week. Unfortunately, and it pains me to say this, Janet Jackson, my own like personal, idol, my own personal goddess, failed me completely this week. And, I'm not mad about it. I'm like, who cares? What does she know? Right? Like,
okay.
I've moved on. At worst, I won't spend, I'm not going to say how much I spent seeing her earlier this year on tour. But I'm not going to spend that amount of money on her anymore. Move on. It doesn't affect my vote.
Saved
it doesn't
yourself
affect
some dollars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just don't see what the hullabaloo is about. But speaking of Janet Jackson, because I actually want to get to her, because she actually said, like, everything she said was wrong. Like, there's no gray
There was no gray area.
There's no gray area. Like, ma'am. So she was asked about, the sort of historic moment of having a first Black female presidential nominee, right? Which, again, is another stupid question. Why are you asking a pop star who just want to promote her tour about this?
Oh my gosh.
But this is what The Guardian was doing, right? And she said, well, you know what they supposedly said. She's not Black. That's what I heard, that she's Indian. And then the interviewer actually tried to give her a lifeline and told her, actually, Kamala Harris is the daughter of an Indian woman and a Jamaican father who is Black. And for some ungodly reason, Janet Jackson responded, her father's white. Now, everything here is wrong, right? First of all, she says, you know what they supposedly said. Who are the they? Why don't you know? Why are you telling us?
Rumor has it around my circles that it's Randy Jackson that's causing all of this. So blame a Black man again.
We somehow found our way to another Black man causing
We are
problems.
terrible, terrible people.
Oh my God. Okay. So anyway, no, I am not accepting that answer. She is 59 years old. She knows what she's doing. She's doing the Trump people are saying bullshit, right? Which is when people know that they're lying or they're saying something wrong and they want to say, well, I didn't say it. People are saying this, right? So that's what she's doing. And then she gets told by a reporter from The Guardian, right? Like, that person clearly knows what they're talking about, that actually she has a Jamaican father who is Black, and then she says her father's white, which is just a complete lie, complete misinformation. But what really galls me about this is that Janet Jackson is 59. Kamala Harris is also 58. They're the exact same age. Like, this is your demographic. Even if you're not going to vote for her, my God, shouldn't you know something about her?
I mean, that's the question, isn't it? I think there are people out there, voters out there, who are not tuned in to any of this. And apparently, unfortunately, Janet Jackson is one of them. And she seems like she gets all her news from friends and family and doesn't actually do any investigating on her own. Or maybe she does and she doesn't want us to know. But my sense was that she was being told things from people she trusted, and that's what was driving this. The worst part, though, is that someone on her team tried to correct this for her. Another person tried to save Janet from herself by releasing a statement right after clarifying that Janet Jackson was so apologetic she made the mistake. Of course she knows Kamala Harris is black and supporting her run for president. And that person was actually fired. The person who released that statement was fired by Janet Jackson. The statement was retracted, and Janet Jackson and her team said they never approved the statement, implying that they did not agree still that Kamala Harris was black, did not support her. And that just blew my mind, because you could have said, oh, it was an honest mistake. And actually, it's not an honest mistake, but you could have said it was a mistake. Janet Jackson was misinformed. Someone tried to clear it up, and that person ended up losing their job because of it. And Janet Jackson still hasn't told us where she stands on whether Kamala is black or not. It's interesting. It's really interesting.
The guy who tried to save her career was fired, and apparently, as you said, Randy Jackson is her manager, so maybe they think this is a good moment for her career.
What?
Who knows? But
no.
I'm sure, like, on a personal level, I mean, nobody cares about this on a policy and a political level, but I think on a personal level, someone like Kamala Harris would have grown up with Janet Jackson, right? I know she loves people like Mary J. Blige, for example, and I just actually feel bad for her that she's reading this news that this, cultural icon believes this kind of stuff about her. I would feel bad because, like, I was a fan up until today, apparently. But now Janet Jackson is canceled.
For you,
well,
yes.
I'm going to listen to Rhythm Nation later, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that big a Janet Jackson fan, so I could take it either way. I'm not... The two celebrities we're talking about, I don't listen to them, either of them, that much. So Chappel Roan, Janet Jackson... to me, they're both just symptoms of a larger issue around this election, which is just, again, misinformation, low information, lack of information. Just, I don't know. It feels like if you're someone who's very sort of into the news and politics like we are, and you're watching these people have these conversations where they're saying things that aren't true, and you're hearing people having these opinions online that are based on, nonsense and lies, it's a frustrating experience to be someone who feels like and believes you're informed, and I think we are, and then hears what's happening out there. And I really hope we can turn this around before the election, because it is still very close, and both campaigns actually are still fighting to win. I know there seems to be a sense that, like, Donald Trump is phoning it in, but his campaign team is not. And the amount of work that is happening behind both candidates behind the scenes is still fully fledged driving towards November. And I think the Democrats, there may be something simmering under about people just, like, not having all the information they need to make the right decision and therefore staying home. And that concerns me a little bit. It's a little concerning.
And I can believe that for Chappell Roan and her fans. But my God, Janet Jackson and people like her just have no excuse at all.
They're older and they should be wiser, but they're not.
And then Speaking of what the campaigns are doing to win the election.
Oh, yes. Our unsolicited advice. Yes. Well,
For the
I'm going to
DNC.
let you talk about this because I know the day you signed up for this, and I remember telling you, why did you give your email address? Because I've been through this before, but I'll let you do the unsolicited advice this week, which I want to say we haven't done this for a while. I feel like we should do this more often. We should do more unsolicited advice, but this week Olu is going to do the unsolicited advice.
So we have some unsolicited advice for the DNC and their fundraising emails and text messages. It has been insane the amount of bombarding they do with the fundraising and the emails and the text messaging and the reminders. Like a good citizen, all right, when Kamala Harris was announced as the presidential nominee, I signed up for the DNC, to help make sure that Trump doesn't come back into the White House.
Right, you were trying to be supportive.
In the last 24 hours, I have received about a dozen emails from the DNC, all asking me to donate, all asking me to read some hard truths, all 3 headlines you need to see to believe, trusting you with some strategic information. This will only take 2 minutes. And then the worst of all is I got an email from fucking Anthony Scaramucci telling me now is our chance. And this is the question I have for the DNC. Who needs to hear from Anthony Scaramucci to vote for Kamala Harris? Like, who is that person? Who is this demographic? If I've already given you my email and I'm already involved with you, I am not an undecided voter. And I'm not an independent voter, right? And I'm not somebody who was on the Trump side or is on the Trump side and
You're
needs
not
to
on
be
the
converted.
fence, yeah?
So, why? Because this makes me less likely to donate to y'all now that I see Anthony Scaramucci on my fucking email. So, yes, exactly. Our advice is please do less.
Do less, email marketing team at the Kamala Harris campaign. Please do less. I will say I only get the DNC emails. I don't get the actual Harris campaign emails because, pro tip, I have hide my email. So when I sign up for stuff like this, I use one of those temporary emails. And when I'm done, I just delete and I don't get any more messages. So I have not been seeing the deluge of emails that Olu has been seeing. Thank goodness, because that would really drive me off the wall. I saw you sent me a screenshot of your inbox. It looks ridiculous. It looks like you work at the campaign. You're just getting emails every hour. It's just like, my God. I totally get it though. It's so frustrating, and your whole inbox just gets flooded, and you can't do anything else. You have to delete, and the messages aren't always great. And I really, like you said, it's a good point. If someone is on the email list, I think it's okay to email them, fewer times a day. I think we can aim for 3, maybe. I don't think they need bombardment. Yeah. That's just so funny. It's just like basically on average, an email every 2 hours. That's crazy.
Yep. But I was going to say the hide my email function, Mac Robinson could have used that feature.
Oh, no. That would not have saved him because he already made those comments. So that was maybe he would have gotten fewer notifications, but he already made those comments. So that would not have helped him. What he needed was some kind of, I don't know, privacy
to not
block.
be Mac Robinson.
That also. It's also very important. But yes, unsolicited advice. Kamala Harris, DNC, email marketing teams, please do less. Thank you.
All right. That's all from us, folks. We have a longer episode today just because, again, it's been a frenetic week of insane news from everywhere. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please share it with family and friends. We will see you next week. You can find us on Threads, Instagram, and TikTok at LiberBanter. Bye for now.